Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, a knife maker's filing guide. So today we're going to do a quick video about making a knife maker's filing guide. So a file guide is used to help you file extremely square, even shoulders on knives at the junction between the tang and the ricasso when making Bowie knives and other similar knives with hidden tangs. Anyway, if you don't file these corners perfectly symmetrically and dead flat, you'll leave ugly gaps between the blade and the guard. So this little gizmo solves that problem. Now I'm going to do this using some relatively fancy equipment, but there's no reason you have to do it that way. The basic idea is extremely simple. You'll get the gist of it, and you can do it with a simple drill press. I'll begin with a piece of 01 steel. If you're just getting started with knife making, 01 is really one of the best steels for you to get started with, and its versatility makes it useful for any number of shop tasks, like this one. 01 is typically sold in precision ground form, meaning that it's ground to very precise thicknesses and can be found from many suppliers of steel, knife making supplies, and so on. Just Google it and you'll find dozens of sources online. The filing guide is composed of two small plates that clamp together in a very precise way. First, I'll cut out the pieces from my stock. Now, I'll make my guide about 3 inches wide. You can go a little less if you want, but doing it this way will accommodate a very wide range of potential jobs. Now, the stock that I just happen to have on hand is a little oversized, so I use my mill to thin it down a little. But if you start with a piece somewhere in the range of 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick and around 1 inch wide, you'll be ready to go with none of this messing around. Next, I'll drill some holes. I'll be drilling 1/4 inch holes in the top to accommodate the shank of these 1/4-20 stainless steel cap head bolts, then drilling corresponding holes with a number 7 numerical size drill in the second plate. Those holes will then be tapped for the 1/4-20 thread. Using a mill allows me to position the holes extremely precisely while drilling them separately. I'll spot the holes with a spade bit, then drill them out with the number 7 using the digital readout to locate them to the 1,000th of an inch. But look, you can accomplish the same thing by clamping the two pieces together, then drilling the number 7 holes through both sets of plates, then separating them and using the number 7s as guide holes for the 1/4 inch holes. However you do it, the key thing is that you need these holes lined up very precisely. If there's a whole bunch of slop in it, then it'll be harder to file exactly square on the knives. As long as the holes line up and they're reasonably tight, everything else is okay. You can always come back later on the grinder and grind that top edge flat and square. Incidentally, a lot of knife makers make their guides using 2 pins and 2 screws. The advantage of this is that it's a little easier to make that pinhole precisely without using a mill, because you can just clamp them together, run the drill down through that hole that you're using for each of the pins, slave those pins, and then drill the holes for the screws. The end result will work about the same, but it's a little easier to do using less precise machinery than I've got here. Want to see videos more often on this channel? Better videos? You can help. Consider partnering with the channel by clicking on the link to Patreon. Thanks. Now, back to work. Next, I'll tap the 1/4-20 threads. This has to be done very carefully. High-speed steel taps don't love tapping tool steel. So you have to keep turning them back and breaking the chips as you go, back and forth, back and forth. You can feel that tool flex a little bit, and as soon as that happens, then you have to just sort of back off, break the chip, and then turn it a little further. Backing the tap out all the way, cleaning the chips out of the flutes, and then reinserting is also helpful in maintaining the life of the tap. If you're really careful though, they won't...
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, okay, sometimes even being really careful, they still break. Now what? Quick lesson in removing broken taps. First, I'll grind the broken tap flat on my belt grinder. Then I'll use a smaller diameter that is smaller than number 7. In this case, it's 1/8 of an inch. A smaller diameter carbide spade bit to carefully drill out the remains of the tap. High-speed steel taps are very hard, so only a carbide bit will drill it. Always good to keep a few carbide drills around. Don't overdo it or you snap off the carbide bit in there and then you're sunk for real. Just peck away until the tap's drilled out. Once you've drilled the center of the tap out, you can clear the remains of the tap and then finish up the threads with another tap, which is what I do here. Alright, all done. Now I'll check to make sure everything fits, do a little cleanup on the grinder, and then heat treat the plates. It's important to harden them so that the guide will be roughly as hard as the file that you're using to file the shoulders on your knives. If it's not, your file guide will get filed down and wrecked pretty quickly. But honestly, O1's pretty easy to heat treat. If you've never heat treated anything before, this is a good little place to practice. You can heat it cherry red with any kind of heat source, a torch, a forge, charcoal fire, anything, and you can quench it in oil at that point and get pretty decent results. Now in my case, to optimize the hardness, I'm going to go ahead and use my heat treating oven. I'm heating it to 1475, soaking for about 10 minutes, and then quenching in oil. This is just garden variety peanut oil. And here we go, using a file test to check to make sure that it hardened. In case you're curious, they've hardened to about 65 on the Rockwell C scale. I'll temper them for an hour at 375 to toughen them enough so that they don't snap when I'm using them, and that'll back that hardness down to around 60. There. A little cleanup on the grinder, then assemble the guide. And here we go, ready to file the tang of a sushi knife. Want to see how the sushi knife comes out? I'll upload that video in a week or so, and I'll post the link here when it's ready. Hey guys, if you found value in this video, I hope you'll consider partnering with the channel to help us bring more videos, better videos, more knives, more techniques, all that cool stuff. Click the link to Patreon to help this channel. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, bro, what are you waiting on? And check me out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Also, if you're into Japanese swords, check out my website, waltersorrellsblades.com, where you'll see more of my work and where you'll find videos about the making of Japanese swords, along with mounting, fittings, polishing, hamones, all kinds of good stuff. Now, more videos.